with your daughters, Be'ezrat Hashem, as we progress through the curriculum. Each week we have a metaphor, which the following week ask for any feedback if they notice something changed in the way their mind switched from experiencing an emotion that they did not want to have to recognizing that they can control it by choosing the next thought. So that's very much what we're kind of looking for. I thought I would share with you, since it's in this week's parasha, Sarah Imenu, barren 90 years. What was her gut reaction when she overhears the Malachim giving the Basura Taiva that she's going to have a child this time next year when the sun hits the sircha that they made a scratch down the wall? What was her gut reaction? Yeah, she laughed. And then she's asked, why did you laugh? What was her response? Her response was, Lo sahakti, I didn't laugh. Now, isn't that, just reading the bare words of the Chumash, one would say, hey, that's denial. It's not a river in Egypt, never mind. So, how did she get away with that? How can she say, Lo sahakti? It's even recorded in the Torah that she laughed. So it's fascinating that the Chidush Yerim offers the following. How long does it take to do teshuvah? It can be 1 minute.
Or a lifetime.
A lifetime. It's an ongoing process. Because I'm going to make future mistakes. So I've got to do teshuvah for those two and they haven't happened yet. If someone says, this is a case in the Gemara, Kedushin Mem Tes, it says, if someone says to an Isha, everyone knows he's a Rasha Gomer, not just Rasha, he's a completely wicked person. And he says to a lady standing next to him, Hariat Mekudeshesli B'Teba'azu, you are betrothed to me with this ring, Al Manas, on condition, Sh'ani Tzaddik Gamur, that I'm a totally righteous individual. And you've got witnesses. It's just the last seconds of Yom Kippur. This is my embellishment, not in the Gemara. And he's eating a hand-grilled cheese sandwich. And in the last swallow, Rabbeinu time for the end of Yom Kippur goes out. And after that swallow, he takes out this ring and gives it to this lady on this condition. So this is not a theoretical question. It's actually paskened in Shulchan Aruch. So what's the status? Is it a valid marriage, yes or no? And the answer is Mekudeshet. It's a valid marriage. That's assuming she is in agreement. And what's the reason? Shema, perhaps, he had teshuva beliboy. Perhaps he had, actually the Gemara says, Shema he had teshuva bedatoi. Maybe he had a thought of teshuva in his mind. And in God's dictionary, everyone knows he's a Rasha Gomer, but in God's dictionary, if he had that thought, he has completely changed his identity. And now he's a Tzaddik Gomer. I mean, he has to prove it with his future actions, but as far as the Kedushin is concerned, it's considered 100%, not 99.9, it's 100% valid, which is quite extraordinary. Happens to be that in Shulchan Aruch, Ibn Ezra, Siman Lamed Ches, Sif Lamed Aleph, I'm not saying that to impress you, it's all Simanim. Simanim just is, how do you say Simanim? Signs and it's just a system for remembering information in different places. So in Shulchan Aruch actually quotes the exact same words, changes the last word, Shema hiha teshuva beliboy, because das and leiv are interchangeable. In the words of Chazal, it's the same thing. So it comes out that 1 second, 1 split second is less than a second, one thought can change one's entire identity. We change our muzzle by our actions, by our thoughts, by our words. I don't know if you saw that clip that's just going out. I just saw it yesterday, it came out yesterday. One of the soldiers describing what was happening when they found the lady hostage. And they said, you can't believe, if you've watched every Mission Impossible and James Bond movie, the intrigue of how they had to get around this web of tunnels and the booby traps, and to find this girl and bring her home safely, it's beyond and beyond a miracle. But he said, the real miracle, and then he starts showing you the footage of what was taking place at the time, that the family had brought a Sefer Torah into this girl's bedroom, and they're crying their hearts out, God, we're bringing your Torah into her bedroom. Can you please bring her back here too? And then it was showing other mitzvahs that the mother was doing, Hafrashas Challah, etc. So this soldier was pointing out, look how this one person that we have retrieved asked what was going on differently in the lives of the family and the immediate community. And you start to see, oh God, you are really in responding to what we're going through. Everyone here should feel very confident, because if you eat kazayas Friday night of bread and Shabbos day and Shabbos afternoon, then Chazal tell us, it's more in Shabbos Kufiyat Ches, that you're saved from Chevli Mashiach, the birth pangs of the coming of Mashiach, and Gog and Magog, and Din Shel Gehenna. So it's a pretty good deal. And that's not the reward, that's just bonus. The reward is an Elam Emes. But I want to share with you this insight from Chidush Sherim about Sarei Menu. Sarei Menu responds, I did not laugh, when the Torah just recorded in Perek Ches Pasuk Hey that she laughed. She laughed when she heard she was about to have a child. That was her gut reaction. My gut reaction is a pop-up. But what happened next when she said, when Hashem said, why did you laugh? And she said, I didn't laugh. But it's recorded you laughed. Says the Chidush Sherim something quite astonishing. In Hilchos Teshuvah of the Rambam, he says that one of the ways of doing Teshuvah is to say, I'm a different person. Moving forward, I'm not, that's the old me. This is a new me. And Rambam actually says, change your name. So it points out Rambam, I don't mean literally change your name, just say, oh, that's a different Jonathan, that's a different Sarah, that's a different Abraham, whatever. So said the Chidush Sherim, she was so aware of herself that she hopped immediately after her gut reaction that 1 second, I've been praying for this for the best part of 90 years. Every month, I'm praying, please let it be this month that I will be able to bear a child. And now that I've got this basura, of course I believe. And then when she was accused, why did you laugh? And me? Oh, that was the old Sarah. I didn't laugh. So it's an amazing insight, but it's demonstrating the place where we truly experience life is inside out. And it's an acute awareness that what I'm experiencing is not what you're saying to me or how you're saying it, but what I'm saying to myself about what you're saying to me and how you're saying it. It's really not that mysterious. What might be complicated is that my mind is cluttered with a lot of stuff. And what I have found personally over the years is that children get what I'm sharing easier than us adults, because our minds have got so many memories of stuff that's taken place from childhood, adolescence, marriage, workplace, health issues, financial issues, extended family, etc. There's so much going on now globally, and the whole Jewish people are being targeted essentially just because we're Jews. And the world is really not making that much of a difference between whether we are from or not from, and to what degrees they're from, etc. That there's so much going on in our minds that I could easily fall into the trap of thinking the world is really happening outside in. But that's exactly what Hashem wants. He wants the world to be Olam HaNisayim. It's a one long test. It's not Olam HaNisyonis. I would think, hey, just growing up as an Nisayan, just being a teenager as an Nisayan, just being a parent as an Nisayan, just being married as an Nisayan, each one is its own Nisayan. But Hashem doesn't call it Olam HaNisyonis because it's all one long story of one long Nisayan. But along the way, his invitation is for me to change my mind. Teshuvah really means changing direction. But where's that direction changing? So it's really starting over here. So that I thought I would share with you. And then I want to share with you an insight I heard from Rabbi Yaakov Greenwald, who wrote this sefer here with a stipler. I think I mentioned it last week. It's called Eitzes V'Hadrachas. Rabbi Yaakov Greenwald was very, very close to the stipler, and he wrote many letters back and forth, and the stipler responded to him. And he shared with me the following insight. The insight I'm about to share with you is not actually in the sefer. I just remembered that he told me this verbally. He wants to bring proof where in the sefer he actually does say, what's the answer to anxiety? What's the answer to worry and fear? So this is in the context of someone who's like plagued, that in the middle of Shemona Esrei, he can't stop worrying about whatever it is that's taking place in his world. And it interferes with his avodas Hashem when he's learning, when he goes to work. And it's like he's becoming neurotic over these fears. So the stipler interestingly answers, Ha'etza the Eitzah, the advice, almost to say like there is no other. Al zeh rak achas. On this, there's only one advice. And what is that? Hesach hadas mikol ha'inyan. Stop thinking about it completely. Just hesach hadas. Don't go there with your mind. Remove your mind. Mikol ha'inyan, from the entire topic. So we started talking about this last week, and someone did bring up, hey, I think it was Mrs. Kleiman, but what's the strategy for? So I'm going to start going into a little bit of strategies, even though it's a bit early, because I still want to really build the case for experiencing. I'm not trying to intellectually persuade you where we experience life. I'm trying to point more and more arrows inside our mind that points to the real source of what we're experiencing, whether it's feeling or what we're experiencing outside of the world, and reading in the news or seeing in clips. Where's that really taking place? And the moment we realize it's really taking place inside my thought, the first thought I have is my response, like Saramenu laughed. Or like when we stood at the Yam Suf and we saw the Mitzrayim behind us for the first time, Vayiru B'nai Israel, they were really Yiru Me'oi, they were extremely fearful, Vayitzaku El Hashem. And then they cried out to God. That, by the way, is the real strategy. The real strategy is that the moment I realize this is plaguing me and it's not easy for me to distract myself. It's all very well to say, Hesach hadas mikol ha'inyan. Stop thinking about it entirely, but I'm living in it. This kid is still in my house. My husband is still in my world. This boss is still the person I have to deal with on a daily basis. And before I've got all these pieces, and then be told, stop thinking about it. That's not so simple. Or is it? So we take a cue from B'nai Israel that they hopped, what do I do with extreme fear? They were extremely fearful. Perek Yudalad in Parshas Beshalach, when we were faced with Mitzrayim after us, and we thought we'd just finished with the 10 plagues, and now we're trapped, literally. Sagar Aleihim HaMidbar. The Midbar is on both sides of us, the Yam Suf in front of us, and the only entrance to this beachhead in front of the Yam Suf, the Mitzrayim are there, we're trapped. So V'yitzaku, they screamed out to Hashem. When we scream out to Hashem, please, God, I can't do this alone. There's a surrender, there's a real admission that give me all the strategies you can, but ultimately, if I believe the strategy is what's going to get me out of the trouble of the thoughts that are plaguing me, then it's my emunah in the strategy that I'm reliant on. But what happens if the real source is, Rabbi Shalom, you can help me take control of my next thought. I don't have control of the pop-ups. They come into my life all the time. But if I know I'm always in control of how I respond afterwards, in my mind, who am I putting back in charge over here? So this is really the piece I want to get to. So Rabbi Greenwald, on this letter, he shared with me the following, I thought was a mind-blowing insight that the Steipler told him of a proof of how this really works. Hashem gives us commandments. Every single one of those mitzvahs is a vote of confidence you can. It makes no sense that he would tell you to do something we can't do. It's impossible. Every single loitase, everything he tells me don't do, that's a vote of confidence. I can avoid that. Now, out of the 80 plus mitzvahs of the mind that there are in the Torah, out of 613, one of them is lotito. Don't bear a grudge. That's the English translation. It means don't remember other people's mistakes. Or you need to store them because you might need it letuelas for some purposeful. You can't forget it, but it's not telling you to forget it. It's saying don't remember it, meaning don't hold on to it. The language of lotito in Rashi, in Gemara Yuma, I'm just sharing with you in case you want to share this with your husband, and he can check you and say if I'm misreading or misinterpreting, or that's my understanding of the words. But on the mitzvah lotito, the Gemara Yuma, page Chaf Gimel Amud Aleph, right at the top, Rashi on the second line, in defining Zuhi Natira. This is Natira. Natira we translate as bear a grudge. It means remembering other people's mistake. Zuhi Natira. Shahadava Shamur Beliboy. That this item the person did wrong to me, or said wrong to me, or upset me, is Shamur, it's been guarded, Beliboy, in my mind, V'lo hisichai midasoi. And I'm not letting go of it from my mind. I'm not letting go. So that means Natira, Loitita, is in chapter 19, verse 18 of Vayikra. Loitita, Loitikaim is the first one. Don't have Nakama. Says Sefer Charedim is taking place over here. Loitikaim, Nakama, I think you agree, that is more on the severe side of don't do's. Right? Don't want to take revenge on a person that upset you. You can hear this, it's a very serious one, right? Lotikaim velotito et bnei amecha. Don't want to take revenge, it's the thought, and don't remember other people's faults. What's the next words in that same pasuk? It's the same pasuk, no pause, no, not later on, it's the same pasuk. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamecha. And love your neighbor as yourself. So ask the disciple, I thought it was a brilliant question, and the Rabbi Greenwald, how he explained it to me was, he embellished it slightly, and I'm going to increase on his embellishment. But his embellishment was the following. He was a psychologist of great repute. He started many, many decades ago, before it was popular for frum Jews to go into psychology, and he was pushed in that direction by two people, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky and Moshe Feinstein, of blessed memory. And he told me the disciple said it in this following way, but he embellished it slightly. I'm slightly embellishing it too, because I'm an actor from childhood, so I'm going to dramatize it slightly. So he said the following: imagine Dr. Freud would be standing when Moshe Rabbeinu was writing this pasuk. Loitikaim, don't take revenge. Velotita et bnei amecha, and do not bear a grudge. Don't remember other people's faults. Ve'ahavta recha kamecha, and love your neighbor as yourself. So Freud would go, excuse me, Moshe Rabbeinu, with all due respect, I have a lot of clients who are going to have a real problem with this pasuk. Do you mind taking loitikam velotitor and moving them like somewhere near the beginning of Genesis, and then take ve'ahavta recha kamecha and put it like somewhere near the end of Deuteronomy, and give my clients some space to recover? And you can almost hear a legitimate rationale behind the request. So Moshe Rabbeinu would answer back with all due respect, Dr. Freud, let me explain to you that God is the one who wired our minds. And what he's basically telling you is the following. Nakama is a thought. Revenge. Natira, bearing a grudge, remembering other people's mistakes, that's a thought. You can go from one thought to another. In fact, you can even go to a different thought altogether. So what God is actually saying in this one verse is, I have so much confidence in my product, I make no junk, says God. I actually wired your mind to be able to be Masir Das from one thought to the next, and you can focus on this one thought if you want to. It's really your choice. So it's really a vote of Hashem's extraordinary confidence in our intelligence. Our mind is able to actually do that. Some of you may have read about Stephen Covey, where he describes a fascinating instant. And this is, I think, a very, very good demonstration of being done l'chavschus. Which, by the way, think about it, the mitzvah to be done l'chavschus, b'tzedek tishpoit amitecha, where's that taking place? Which part of your body? And what the mitzvah is telling me to do is that even though your eyes saw and your ears heard, so you are a witness to what you just experienced. So you can't unexperience what you just witnessed. But if there's anywhere in your creative imagination that you can come up with a story, interpretation, that puts them in a favorable light, which of the two should you select? What you witnessed with your own eyes and ears, or dig somewhere into your creative imagination, come up with something that would put them into a positive light? Which of those two is the mitzvah b'tzedek tishpoit amitecha requesting of me? It's the second. Extraordinary. Says Stephen Covey, he was on a train, and there was a father who was looking like completely out of it and not paying any attention to his kids, the 3 or 4 kids, and they were wild. They were jumping on the bars and hanging, and so I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was Covey himself who was experiencing this. So at some point he just simply said to the father, says, are you the father? Yes. was like, so I said, oh yeah, sure. We just came from hospital and my wife and mother died, so they're like, they don't know where to put themselves. So help me to understand, what do you think Stephen Covey, in a split second, when he understood this answer, what do you think happened to his mind? Do you think he was still judgmental about, well, you really need help in parenting these kids? I mean, there's no boundaries with them. They're all over the place and it's public. You could hit someone. Or he switched to compassion. Judgment completely dropped, moved to understanding, compassion, and almost the point where, what can I do to help you? Oh, so one thought can change my entire experience and give such a different light to it that Rabbi Shimon Schwab once told me that this actually happened to him. This is the way he told me the story. He was a Rav in Berlin. He escaped when he was 19 years old. It was just before the war. He used to go to bed at night, he told me, with his clothes on. Only his shoes were unlaced, but they were on as well. So if the Nazis came for him in the middle of the night, he was a Rav of the shul, he would go with dignity. He didn't want to be in the streets with his pajamas and paraded without the cupboard of a rabbiner. So there was one particular Nazi officer who was tracking him down until he realized there was no way he could escape unless he leaves Germany. So that's why he left Germany. And he told me personally, he believes the reason why this German officer, who was eventually identified at the age of 96 in Argentina, had the schus of saving his life. Not on purpose, he wanted to kill him. But in doing so, Hashem actually orchestrated it, that he would end up saving his life for it. He arrives in Baltimore, where he was a Rav for a number of years before he moved to Washington Heights. And he told me that he was on a bus from Baltimore to New York one evening, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, it broke down. It was about a mile away from the service station, and everyone was told to walk to the service station, 15, 20-minute walk. And he gets there, and this is like 2:30, whatever, in the morning, and to his absolute aghast, he sees there one of his congregants who's eating a ham sandwich. And so he told me, I wasn't sure what to do, because I have a mitzvah of I've got a mitzvah to gently correct someone who's doing an aveira, but I'm worried that if he sees me, he might choke on the sandwich. So he said, and also he'd just be so embarrassed. Even if I say it gently, he'll be just so embarrassed, and I've got to be able to do the mitzvah tochacha without embarrassing him. And then he thought of the mitzvah of being done l'chavschus. So he said, I can't even figure out what could possibly be a justified reason for him doing this. But he decided to leave the service station so he wouldn't even be visible to this Jew if he turned around. And sure enough, the following Shabbos, it was a Friday afternoon, he was doing the rounds of the local hospital, and this Jew was there, and he asked him, what are you doing? He said, I have a hole in my liver, and I have a special dispensation from the doctors that if ever I'm hungry, I must eat something, whatever it is. It makes no difference what it is, just to save my life. So that was astonishing, that even if I can't find a place inside my mind that would put the person into a favorable light, just assume it. Because I don't know everything, period. There's no way I'll ever know your story, your background story.
I mean that you want to understand the story of Hamas now?
Sorry?
Like, should we understand the story of Hamas? Because we can, if we want.
So if someone spells out their story and you already have clear evidence of a history behind it, you know exactly where you stand and you know where they stand. So this is not applicable to Hamas. In fact, the language of the pasuk is "B'tzedek tishpot amitecha."
Okay, so amitecha, fine. So I have a Jew that made something very bad to me.
Right.
And maybe I can find a way, I don't know, a way to understand why he does it, but at the end of the day, it's bad. I'm not going to forgive a bad.
So here's where the Torah is telling us that even if I don't have an obligation in my mind to forgive that person, I have to answer the following question. Do I have all the information for me to be certain that that person's behavior was 100% wrong and against me? Do I have all the information to be absolutely certain that they are mistaken? Is it possible that there's information that's missing that I don't know of that would help me understand and maybe move from judgment to compassion or understanding or even love? So this is really what the Stipe is offering, is the shut in the pasuk, that Hashem wired us to be able to do that. Is it a struggle? Yes. Do I want to forget? Right now, I do not want to forget. Yaakov Meir Shechter, who's Rosh Mukubalim in Yerushalayim, he actually offers, similar to what you're bringing up now, that I think I actually have it here. Did I bring it? Lift up the sefer? No, I must have left it upstairs. I apologize. He brings the following. How many times I am so absorbed, let's say, with something that's happened to me and I'm very, very upset. And then years later, someone reminds me of what happened and I say, oh yeah. And it's like, it's so far back in history that instead of it triggering off anger, so much has happened since then that's given me a broader perspective. A little bit like now, there's certain things that become so trivial that I can catch myself much earlier in thinking, really, I'm going to get stuck in this now with what's going on in Eretz Yisrael. Really, that's where I'm holding. So Rabbi Yaakov Meir Shechter points out that there is such a concept as time healing. And if I don't realize that I have the power in the next thought to heal, literally from now to next thought, it will happen on its own as my mind gets occupied with so much else taking place in my immediate family, my health, finances, extended family, Klal Yisrael, etc., community, my business. There's so many distractions that when I'm reminded either by myself or someone else about what happened years ago, I can laugh about it because I'm so detached. So that goes, and so he asks the question, why am I detached? He says, because so much has happened since that my mind has been occupied with other things. So he's giving example after example where it's really my mind that's my enemy, and the solution to my enemy is my mind. My mind is my enemy, my mind is my friend. My mind gets me in trouble when I get sucked in, but the solution, interestingly, is my next thought. And even if I get a pop-up after that keeps reminding me of what that person did or said, I'm still capable of the next thought of moving forward. And it happens, like a child comes home and I'm obsessed by something, a child comes home crying and my mind switches to what happened. And it may not be serious at all, but the child needs my immediate attention, ear and comfort. And then the child can move on, and then do I always go back to what I was thinking before, or that was enough of a distraction that I can start functioning and get supper ready, or deal with a phone call or a project that I'm behind on, etc.
So if it does say that I have to, like it says I have to let it come up, let's say you can't forget someone. Let's just say, but you put it out of your mind and
Yes.
you're moving on.
Yes.
Can that be a form of you have to let it go?
Yeah, because it's I agree with you. It's in a process where I can't go to kamoicha, that I'm going to love them like I love me. It's not happening.
But you're choosing to just change your thought and almost like walk away from it.
Yes.
Even if you're still know that you're not going to trust that person.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yeah. You don't have to do business again with them.
Right,
You don't have to make a shidduch with them. Or 100%.
Because the do is to love one like you love yourself. Like it's telling us to do that. So walking away from it could be a form of that.
Yes. Look, there are personalities like Rabbi Yaakov Meir Shechter. He was engaged, I think, 17 years old. His Kala was 16 days, or maybe a day after the engagement. The family found out that she had mental problems. So parents put tremendous pressure on him to break the engagement. He's 17 years old, and he says, isn't it bad enough that she suffers from mental illness, that now I'm going to make her broken-hearted as well? And he insisted on marrying her, and he did. Now, I personally was witness that when I went into his house the first time, I was asking him various answers, and I brought my son, my elder son at that time, just at 13, for him to put on fill-in for my son. And all of a sudden, while he was talking, I heard this scream. Now, please forgive me for saying that I hadn't heard a scream like this since the movie The Exorcist. It was so blood-curdling. It sounded like someone was either being murdered or was the person murdering the victim. It was, and I jumped and I had this immediate sense of something's really in danger, but I couldn't help the fact that my view, right in front of me, was this Rabbi Yaakov Meshachta, who didn't flinch at all. This was a normal occurrence for him. His wife was not a well person. I'm not going into the miracle of the fact that they had children. I'm giving you an example where there are people who recognize, whether it's because they're more naturally inclined that way or they've trained their minds that way because of the tzidkas that they've nurtured within themselves, that they actually have that ability to recognize, I exist over here. A second example, which is not exactly the same, but is not dissimilar. I don't want to say which, some biographies like to paint our tzaddikim as born that way. This particular story has not been reported. It's never been printed the way I heard it from Rabbi Yaakov Greenwald, who heard it from Chazon Ish. It's a story of how the Chofetz Chaim got married. It was the first marriage. First marriage, he was 16 years old. He came home. He was a child prodigy. He was an Iloi and a tzaddik in his own right, a very special boy. His mother was on her second marriage. She had lost her first husband. She was an almana, and she had remarried. In those days, middle 1850s or whatever it was, a woman didn't have a choice of who she couldn't be fussy. If it would be someone who could support her and her one child, that would already be fantastic. So she married someone of a more coarse, that's how it was described, a more coarse character and simple. And he brought into the marriage a daughter of similar stature, so we say. And ever since the father put his eyes on this young Yisrael Meir, he started putting pressure on his new wife to set them up as a shidduch. And the wife was devastated. She wouldn't hear of it. And when young Yisrael Meir comes home, Bein Hazmanim, he sees something's not right about his mother's equilibrium. She's upset about something. And she asked, what's the matter? He said, nothing. And he pushed a little bit more, and she burst out into tears and told the truth that her new husband's putting pressure for him to marry the stepdaughter. And his immediate response was, Mother, why are you crying? I'll marry her. And he did. And the way it was put to me was, in the words of the I can't say it in Yiddish, but the words from the Chazon Ish was, and he still became the Chofetz Chaim. You see, it almost doesn't matter, I'm saying my words carefully, it almost doesn't matter who we marry. It almost doesn't matter our circumstances, because a person is in Olam HaNesoyim, and therefore Hashem is squeezing us in the Nesoyim. That's why in Parsha Shmos, the Medrash tells us that the Jewish people, in Parsha Shmos, Perek Aleph and Beis, we are under extraordinary pressure and torture and enslavement by the Mitzrayim. That's what's going on there, to get the context. The Medrash says the Jewish people are compared to an olive. Because when you squeeze an olive, what comes out? Olive oil. Okay, so what determines the quality of the olive oil? How hard I squeeze? Or the maturity of the olive? Oh, so when someone squeezes me, it could be my wife, it could be my child, it could be my mother, in-law, sorry, just swallowing. It could be my father-in-law, and it's not funny with the father, no, why? It could be any, it could be my boss, my client, my co-worker, this almost covered everyone. Whoever it is that's squeezing me, what's going to come out? And the answer is, whatever's inside. So if I'm frustrated right now and you squeeze me, frustration is probably going to come out. Whether it's related to what you say or do, it doesn't make a difference. But right now I'm frustrated. If I'm an angry person in general and I'm squeezed, well, guess what? How I'm going to respond. If I'm struggling with my frustration, I'm struggling with my anger, I'm trying to be just even aware that I get angry and try to be aware of how it comes out in not a very mild, gentle way. So when you squeeze me, the struggle will come out. Maybe you'll see me, yeah, fine, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, no problem. Right? And you can sense the body language, tone of voice, that I'm struggling with this. So when we're squeezed, God is not hurting me. He's squeezing me for me to see me. So I get a chance to make a choice in the next thought. Am I proud of what's coming out of me? Or do I want to make a different choice moving forward? So the word nisayon is a 2-letter root, nes. What does nes mean? Banner. What else does it mean? Sorry?
From like the word nisayon?
Nisayon. So it's a test, it's a challenge, it's a banner, flag. Nisa means to elevate. Nes also means a miracle. And lanus, same 2-letter root, means to run away, escape. Rabbi Shlomo, Master of the Universe, in English you've got one word for escape, a separate word for banner, another one for flag, another one for challenge, a separate word for miracle. You've got 5 different meanings in one word. And Hashem's answer is, there are no mistakes in my language. My language is reality. You're looking at different ingredients of the same recipe called nisayon. Because a nisayon has in it an invitation for me to respond. I can escape, that's easy. How do I escape? Well, I go to a different marriage, or I blame the teacher, or blame my teacher, or blame my boss, or blame my coworker, or blame whoever it is I'm blaming. So if it's your fault that I'm unhappy in this situation, who has to change according to me? Oh, everyone else. Oh, so I'm avoiding changing the only person God designed for me to change. So I can run away. There's lots of ways to run away. Blame, complain, deny, give excuses, and there's lots of ways for me to run away.
So what are you suggesting?
Sorry?
What are you suggesting? You think everything is my fault?
No. I don't want to go there either, because that's probably going to pull me down. But a question I can ask, which is different, is instead of who's doing this to me, I can ask, what's my participation in this? How much of this can I change by changing me? Because that's the only person I'm actually putting in.
But by me changing, it's not going to be me anymore.
Correct. That's the whole cup.
So how do you want to do it?
When I change what's taking place over here, I change what's taking place over here. The moment I think it, I feel it. That's why we have the pasuk, Kamaima panim la panim, kein lev ha'adam la adam. Just like facial expressions in waters are immediately reflected with no deviation. So that is a metaphor everyone knows. You look in the mirror, you look in the water, it reflects your facial expressions. Kein lev ha'adam la adam. Oh, Shlomo Melech is telling us a huge secret, but he's giving us a simple metaphor. It's the exact same way that Hashem has wired us, that we are reflecting each other. So there's somewhere in this nisayon which I'm responsible for. So let's say you're talking about Hamas. Yeah, I provide Hamas with their bullets and their knives and their missiles with my lashon hara. With our teshuvah, we are actually the ones who are controlling the Patriot missiles that are intercepting, because it's not the Patriot missile that's intercepting the missile. It's our mitzvahs that are protecting us. So it's an olam haruchni that's taking place simultaneously to olam hagashmi. But in back to the nisayon part, I'm not sure if I'm fully answering your question, but revisit it after this. I'll quickly go through the vocabulary of nisayon. You've got the nes, which is a flag, a banner, and that is a banner is like a flag is identification. I'm identifying myself. Oh, so the nisayon squeezes out of me. This is who I am right now, and it's a flag to show me this is who I identify and this is the direction I'm going in. Do I want to stay this way, or do I want to change? So that's really the purpose of the nisayon. Nisayon also comes from the word nisa, which means elevate. It can elevate me. So if I say no to another cookie, do I regret it afterwards, or do we feel stronger for it?
But I'm talking about something, let's say I'm in an argument with a person, right? And you said I have to question myself, what's my part in here? If I give up, meaning if I try to understand what's my part, and it would mean that I would not agree on I would basically take up my values. If I
Yes.
don't agree with
Good
that
point.
person or something. I'm not talking about a cookie. I mean, of course, too bad, you know? We're talking about like a real serious issue here,
Yeah.
you know? I'm fighting with my mother-in-law.
Right.
If I agree with her, it means that I take out my values of chinuch or whatever.
So,
You know what I'm saying? So no.
You're asking a very fair question.
Can elevation also be to sometimes hold your own if you believe it's the right thing?
Yes. Then the question will be more in the style than content, meaning, how am I holding my own? Is it coming over with accusing, blaming, complaining, denying, justifying, where I'm trying, almost like a court case, to show you that I've got better evidence than you, and any real arbitrator would side with me. So that's where I can get stuck, and it's more the Yitzhahara who's really pulling me in. If I'm just to share with you one word in Lashon HaKodesh, which has different translations, mevater. So unfortunately, most of the translations don't look at translations, but most of the translations will give you a non-inaccurate meaning. It will tell you mevater means compromise, or mevater means give in, or surrender. Now, unfortunately, in English, those terms, compromise, surrender, give in, have the connotation, if you agree with me, of, okay, you win and I lose. But what happens if Lashon HaKodesh is perfect, and the real meaning of mevater, according to Rabbi Shamshul Raphael Hirsch, we find in Radak as well, comes from the word yoser. What does yoser mean?
To give up of your life, conceive.
Say more. Yoser means yoter.
Allow.
That would be from the word matir or mutar, which is related. Yoter means gain. When
You give gain.
there's two ways of being mevater. When I give in from weakness, you're 100% right. I'm giving it my values, and I'm keeping quiet, and I'm inviting to get trodden on again. If I'm giving in from strength, that's a whole different place, because then I can move on, and I'm not stuck what they're stuck on, and I've got if you want to call it the inner strength to actually deal with it much better than if I'm in a siksuk, in a conflict with this particular person. And when their back is turned or they're not living in my home, I can be mechanech my children the way I see fit, because I'm the mother. And this is the grandmother, and we'll have respect for her, but she can't necessarily break certain boundaries that I need to set for me to be able to do my job. So I'm not getting into particulars. I don't know what the specifics would be, but I'm sharing basically right now a very simple principle, that really everything is really starting here. And that once that becomes an experience, it changes it gives us more time, even if it's a split second, to recognize what I am allowing myself to get sucked into. Or if I realize I'm not getting sucked into it because it's my thinking that thinks I'm sucked into this, and once I realize I can change that, then it all of a sudden puts me back in control. It puts me back in, this is not slippery anymore, I'm not falling, because I can stand up and I can deal with it. It's in that moment where I can deal with it that I can have a much faster recovery than if I'm still on the slope and I'm being pulled down. But I don't realize that the real pulling down is not people pulling me down, it's me pulling me down. So I think I mentioned last week, did I mention just briefly self-esteem, the misunderstanding of self-esteem? So there are a lot of terms in the English language which has got into the world of the professions as well, and they're made a big deal out of. And when you look for the equivalency in Lashon HaKodesh, it usually, if it does exist, it's going to give you a whole new spectrum and a context and understanding. There is no real word for self-esteem. Low self-esteem is a complete and total innocent misunderstanding of reality. There's just no such thing, and I'll explain why. I'll give you first a metaphor. Let's say you actually are a billionairess, but you don't know it. So you think you're poverty-stricken, but you're unaware that there's $1 billion in an account with your name, and you're the only person who can access it. So I can go around saying, I'm so tight on money, and I can't afford. And if someone were to show me, well, that's an innocent misunderstanding of reality, because don't you know your name is on this account, and you're the only person who's got the PIN, and you know the PIN, and if you say the PIN or punch it in, you have access to over $1 billion. And I say, that's ridiculous. So we'll check it out yourself. And then if that does happen, what happens to my low self-esteem, in my financial low self-esteem? What's going to happen? Like a complete, if there would be more than 180 degrees in the other direction, it would be more, it's like a total change. So the example I'm giving is, let's say someone calls you, you're a Camry, you're a 2004 Camry. My age, you were a 1967 beat-up Chevy. But I don't think that there's too many people who still remember that. But let's say you're a 2003 beat-up Chevy, a beat-up Camry. But you're taken to the metal scrap yard, and the guy looks at the engine and says, "Whoa, my gosh, this is a Rolls-Royce engine." Then, 1 second, and he starts walking around again. Do you realize you're so beat up you don't even recognize that you're a Rolls-Royce? And I can prove it to you. Look what's inside. So comes along HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Perek Aleph of Bereshis, Pasuk Kavav, and he tells us, you are created b'Tselem Elokim. You are a reflection of unlimited power. That's what Elokim really means. El means power, Elokim is powers. Hashem is the one power behind all powers. That's what the word means. Bala koiches kulam. You are the one in control of all powers. Oh, so you mean to say that when I'm low and beating myself up, that's a misunderstanding of reality. There's no such thing as a low self-esteem. It's just, I just don't know who I really am. Is this making sense? But the moment I realized, hey, Asher Bacha Banu Mikol Amim. Oh wow, Shelo Asani Goy, which today you can say with a different level of celebration. There's that I'm born from, or became from on my own. I've got from community that I belong to. I've got family, extended family, and my counting my blessings is reality. And if those blessings in the counting translates into I live with more gratitude, I live with more happiness, I've got a stronger me to stand up to the crazy world that's bombarding me with images that would say, see, you ought to be living in fear, in anxiety, not sleeping at night, taking tranquilizers, be immobilized, can't make plans, can't even function, and how's that helping the war?
Well, people in the Holocaust that were scared and they took action were the ones who got saved.
You could argue that. You could definitely argue. I'm not talking about.
People could be, oh, Hashem is here, Hashem is good, Hashem is this.
Yeah. So.
Right.
Yeah. So I agree totally. Here's the point. If the fear I have immobilizes me, it's that type of fear that doesn't enable me to make the right decision in terms of taking action. I'm not sure how aware you are of let's say, is anyone here who's got a husband or a cousin in the IDF? Right, so in their training, do you know what's the punishment if on base you drop a cigarette stub or a Wrigley Spearmint gum wrapper? I'm not sure what they call Wrigley Spearmint gum in this country. You leave a gum wrapper on the floor. What's the punishment? Does anyone know? So my son, who was in the IDF, he was 3 years, when he first told me, did I tell you this? When he first told me when I could join the Israeli army, I said, oh, okay, which unit? He said, combat. I said, combat? If you want combat, just get married straight away. So he laughed, he thought I was joking. But he told me the punishment, the consequence for dropping a cigarette stub on the ground in the base is 3 days solitary confinement. Now, be honest with me. Does that sound like proportionate to the crime? No. So why are they so strict? Very, very interesting answer. If they are in enemy territory and they drop a cigarette stub or a small wrapper, why is that potentially going to put the whole unit's lives in danger? Can't leave any clues. So he told me they've got to train to be aware of the smallest thing they're doing, as small as what I would usually do. I've never smoked a cigarette in my whole life, but I don't know how they drop it on the floor. That's the level of awareness they have to have. In the Holocaust, the fear was so strong, it lasted 24/7, 365 for the length of time until they were liberated or survived. And in that modality, the mind races with looking for solutions. If that same fear immobilizes me, then I'm actually a good candidate for being caught or hurt. But if the fear is making my mind constantly be on the guard, that's exactly what we're looking for. So my son was explaining during the training, if someone allows their emotions, for example, their body, Has v'shalom, is blown up right in front of them. And from the anger of that's my best friend, and we worked so close together, I now concentrate on that one person who shot at him without realizing there may be a context, maybe it's a trap, or whatever it is. So you've got to have such a sharp mind that doesn't allow emotions to become part of the decision-making process. So that's part of the mental training, if you want to call it, of the IDF. So I'm in total agreement with you that if my fear, but there's two types of fear, like being mevater, giving in. Well, there's two types of giving in. There's mevater from weakness, but there's mevater from strength. When it's from strength, guess who's going to sleep tonight? When it's from weakness, I've actually reinforced my resentment because now I'm even more angry than I was before. Do you follow? So it really goes both ways, but the choice between the two is taking place in a split moment. Which route am I going to take?
I think it's also fair to state that it depends on the situation. Like you can't apply one rule universally. It's like each situation is very unique, and so to the extent that you can be mevateres or like, move your body as opposed to like pushing the person out of the way.
Right.
Then great, but
And as a parent, if God forbid a kid is choking,
Yeah.
your mind could panic and
Yes.
instead of like gathering your thoughts and saying I need to call Atzala, it's like saving yourself versus not.
Right.
But it's
You
very
have-
easy to say we should be calm and we
Well,
should
that's why we're
I'm
here.
not- no, I'm
How
not-
do you train your mind?
I'm talking about something slightly different. I'm not talking about training the mind as much as the simple awareness that I actually am experiencing what I'm experiencing over here. So if I'm experiencing shock and panic and in the seconds that might be the difference between saving this child's life who's choking and not, the panic is helping or actually possibly sabotaging.
You get to decide.
So it's not.
What are you going to do now? What are you going to do now?
You're gonna have a lot of regrets.
You know what I'm saying? What do you do? Like, how can you train?
So, the first place I need to be is, am I aware of the source of my experience? I could easily say, oh, it's the child choking, and therefore, until they stop choking, I'm still going to be in panic. But what happens if, and you ask Hatsala members, after the immediate, let's say, panic moment, if they do have that, which they probably don't belong in Hatsala, if they
For a second, but then 60 seconds later,
Yes.
you changed your thought because you had no choice to, obviously.
Yeah, there's no time to process that. I'm talking about a simple awareness of the real source. It doesn't mean it's not happening, it is happening. But how do I deal with it? The difference between my being calm or panicking is taking place over here and can make all the difference to what's happening outside. That's the piece. I'm going to give you some metaphors to start kicking this off more. Here's my worry hammer. So it's a thought. When I worry, it starts to hurt after a while. But it really, by the way, just so you know, it's rubber. So don't try this at home. $9 each on eBay. I have another thought, which is stress. And when I have my stress thoughts, when I keep thinking about what's stressing me out, I just don't understand how I'm going to get out of juggling so much. From the moment I'm waking up, even before Moed Ani, I'm already thinking what I've got on my plate today, and I'm overwhelmed. I haven't even got out of bed yet. I'm already stressed. And now, here's my frustration hammer. I'm not sure what the difference is between them all, but I get frustrated. It's just a word I use to describe what I'm going through right now. Like, how many times I've said the same thing? It's getting really frustrating. I have another hammer here. I'm not going to go through every single one, but anxiety. Oh boy, this is a real moneymaker. Anxiety. I have so much anxiety in my life. You have no idea what's going on that's really freaking me out. And I just don't know what I can do. And the medication, I have to up it or just get more therapy. I can't take this anymore. Now, I'm not trying to belittle anxiety. I'm just showing you a metaphor where health. I've got so many health issues. My doctor says I'm overweight. I'm a candidate for cancer and heart disease. I'm still slum. I don't know where to put myself. I love food. What am I going to do? I have all these debts, I don't know how I'm going to get out of debt. All I do is, the money I make is servicing the debt. Where do I get out of this? So, here's the question. Who's controlling my thoughts? Who's hammering me? So what's the solution? If it's really me who's really doing this, what's my solution? The moment I realize who's holding these thoughts and banging me on the head, and I can really get a headache, just rubber, but you can really get a headache with these thoughts. Migraines, stress. It stresses my health out. I can't sleep, I can't eat properly. Oh, I'm holding these thoughts. Oh, so what's the solution? Oh. Drop the thoughts. See, here's the point. Once I know it's thought, and I'm the one producing the thought, it's very hard for me to divorce what's happening that I believe is causing this anxiety versus what's happening is what's happening. My thinking about it and what I'm saying about it and how many times I'm saying it and how severely I'm reporting it to me, that is what I'm truly experiencing. And we know that because we get distracted by other things, which might not even be as important, but right now I've got to deal with my daughter, she's crying, just came home. Or I haven't got supper ready, or it got burnt, I'm going to come up with something else. Whatever it is, I get distracted by, so that's proof that we live inside thought all the time. So as complicated as it appears, I'm trying to go right to the simplicity that I'm always in control of my next thought. Is this making any sense? What did you get from today? I'm not putting you on the spot, just as on your way out, if you want to.
We need to learn how to adjust how we feel. About anything.
Yeah. Mike.
Well, how do you swap the thoughts, though? I mean, because you always have to be probably thinking about something.
Right.
It's hard just to have a...
It's impossible. It's impossible not to stop thinking.
So
Correct.
it's basically a question of swapping out those hammers for, which is, I understand why people read books, whatever,
Right.
do other things that take them out of...
Yes.
The other observation is a lot of these hammers have to do with things that aren't occurring presently, right? Like anticipation of thinking about future, what will happen if. So like what you were saying, like I think if someone's choking, maybe that, but then you snap into the present and the worry moves away and you move into more like action and there's no stress.
Right.
Right. Maybe afterwards when you're thinking
Then you can
about
think.
it. Right. But when you're in the moment and when you're in the present, a lot of the worry and the anxiety and the stress goes away.
Right.
Right? Even with right now, when
Yes.
you're looking at things, what if this happens here? Right? But
Yeah.
like, I don't know. But my other
You're answering your own question. I think you're
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just tried to summarize
it.
it.
I think you're also saying, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
it's okay if you're stressed or anxious, life is hard, but to recognize it and not let it take over is like the real key. It's not saying like, now you can be happy forever, like be happy forever, like it's up to you, but it's like managing it in a way and recognizing. Am I correct?
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly, it's the awareness that gives us the ability to handle it. It doesn't mean it will go away. It doesn't mean I'm never going to be angry again because I know I'm generating the anger. No, it means there will be triggers, but my recovery from the gut reaction is going to be faster because I recognize that I'm the one who's getting angry.
Yes, like I might be in debt and it takes its like physical toll and mental toll, but like now I'm aware that it's making me feel like this. How do I move forward? Stuff like that. But it doesn't get rid of it, it just changes your outlook of it.
Yeah.
My
It
other
has to be a very slow process where we can start working on ourselves now to understand and to try and be aware throughout the day that when the bigger things happen, I'm saying it's not going to be an overnight process.
No.
Right.
It's interesting. I've actually met people who were struggling, not with this, just struggling with a circumstance that was horrific. And then when they had this insight, if you want to call it, it changed everything literally in a moment. So that's possible. I've seen it. Did I mention Wendy Sagesi last week?
No.
I forget who I've spoken to and what I said. So I met a lady who was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, you did.
I did, yeah. So and I told you her speech.
Yeah.
So that's someone who was suffering for 4 months with depression. When she suddenly realized, I'm generating these thoughts, I'm destroying myself with poison over here, while my body's been taken over by poison. And then she survived another, at that time it was 4 years, and now she died after 9.5 years. So
that's the question I have for you. Like when someone has a clinical diagnosis,
Yes.
a clinical psychological diagnosis of some sort,
yes,
obviously this is something you have to work on top of medicine, or
Yes.
vice versa. Like would you say, would you ever, obviously you can't, I don't know why I'm asking this, but like, would you tell somebody this is all in your mind, it's not necessarily chemical imbalance?
good question.
You know? Or it's just, I guess, every situation, I don't know, it's just something that got me thinking.
So I think there probably are some individuals who can not just have buy-in, but come to it on their own, that I can slow this down or fight it simply through my mind.
Right.
There's a fascinating documentary called Heal, Heal, of a gentleman who was biking, was hit by a truck, and he woke up months later in a coma, quadriplegic. And he swore to himself that he's going to reconstruct his entire body. And he spent months and months, because he couldn't do anything, he couldn't move, he spent months and months and months talking inside his mind to each part of his body, telling it, I'm here for you, you can repair, I'm going to walk again. And it was a matter of months, not even years. It was a matter of months before he was wheeled out of the hospital.
Because that's like, there's real trauma. And
Yeah, that's real trauma.
You like reversed it almost.
Yes,
Yeah.
people are capable. It's amazing what the mind is capable of.
Plasticity.
There's fasting. I'm not going to go into that now, but fasting happens to be an extraordinary cleanser for the body, especially when you hit 18 hours. Then the body starts taking nutrition from dead cells or diseased cells and eats those up. So there's a fascinating, this is not popular in modern medicine because it's going to do away with a lot of surgeries and chemo and whatnot. But there are clinics, fasting clinics, where they will monitor it. A person could actually probably do it themselves, but it's probably not as advisable to try and do it without supervision, because it's fasting with a very small amounts of water. But it's not a point of complete starvation. It's very interesting how they get us this what's called that second shot or next shot of wind it comes into, and the energy level is mind-boggling of what they're able to experience by not eating for 18 hours at a time.
There's a lot of scientific research backing it now.
Yes,
The body goes
it's
into ketosis and it's like very beneficial.
it's picking up momentum. That's correct. The more people who are experiencing the extraordinary benefits of having a terminal disease and reversing it.
It's not healthy to overeat.
So my other question was when you said like amuna,
Yeah.
and you said it's like our mitzvahs that are, blocking the missiles
Yes.
and that. So what is it? Is it amuna? I mean, does it not pay when people are protesting and speaking up and all this? Because at the end of the day, it's in Hashem's hands and
Yeah.
all this stuff